Something extraordinary happened at 06:15 UTC on May 8, 2026, and most of the world does not yet understand what it witnessed. Three naval vessels, one Russian frigate, one Chinese destroyer, and one Iranian corvette conducted a joint maritime security patrol through the Strait of Hormuz in close formation, broadcasting their presence on all maritime channels and making no attempt to conceal their coordination. This was not a coincidence of timing or a symbolic gesture of solidarity. This was the operational activation of a trilateral military alliance that has been developing quietly for years and that fundamentally changes the balance of power in the Middle East and potentially across the entire Eurasian theater. I am looking at automatic identification system data showing the precise movements and formation of these three vessels, official statements from Russian, Chinese, and Iranian military spokespersons describing the patrol as routine cooperation among strategic partners, leaked intelligence assessments from U.S. Central Command describing the operation as unprecedented in scope and implications, and analysis from multiple defense think tanks attempting to model what coordinated Russian, Chinese, Iranian military operations in the Gulf could accomplish. What emerges from these sources is not speculation about future possibilities. What emerges is confirmation that Russia, China, and Iran have moved from rhetorical alignment to operational integration, and that this alliance is now actively challenging American military primacy in a region where the United States has been dominant since 1991. In the next 20 minutes, I am going to explain exactly what this joint patrol represents, why it signals the activation of military coordination that has been prepared over years, what specific capabilities each nation brings to this alliance, and how they integrate to create synergies that exceed the sum of individual contributions, why the United States and its allies have limited options to reverse or counter this development, and what this means for the global balance of power as we enter an era of genuine multipolarity backed by military force. This is Daily Brief, and what we are covering today will be referenced in history books as the moment when the unipolar order established after the Cold War definitively ended. Subscribe now if you have not already. Let's start with what actually happened during this joint patrol, because the operational details reveal the level of coordination and the implicit messages being sent to Washington and regional capitals. The Russian vessel was the Admiral Gorshkov, a stealth frigate commissioned in 2018, equipped with Zircon hypersonic missiles, Kalibr cruise missiles, and advanced air defense systems. This is not a ceremonial ship sent for diplomatic optics. This is a frontline combatant representing Russia's most advanced naval capabilities. The Chinese vessel was the Nanchang, a Type 055 guided missile destroyer, the largest and most sophisticated surface combatant China has ever produced, equipped with long-range anti-air missiles, anti-ship weapons, and sensors comparable to American Aegis systems. The Iranian vessel was the Sahand, a Mauj-class frigate, which is less capable technologically than the Russian and Chinese ships, but represents Iran's most advanced domestically produced naval platform. The three vessels entered the Strait of Hormuz from the Gulf of Oman at 06:15 UTC, maintaining a formation where the Chinese destroyer led with the Russian frigate on its starboard side and the Iranian frigate on the port side, spaced approximately 500 meters apart. This is standard tactical formation for coordinated operations, allowing mutual support and integrated defense while maintaining maneuverability. The patrol transited the entire length of the strait, exited into the Persian Gulf, conducted a circuit of the southern Gulf waters for approximately 4 hours, then returned through the strait to the Gulf of Oman. During the entire operation, the vessels maintained formation, conducted coordinated communication using both secure and open channels, and operated sensors in integrated mode, where data from Chinese and Russian radars was shared among all three ships to create a common operational picture. This level of coordination does not develop spontaneously. It requires extensive prior planning, interoperability testing, and doctrinal alignment. According to analysis published by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, achieving this degree of naval integration typically requires months of joint exercises, exchange of liaison officers, and development of common operational procedures. The fact that Russia, China, and Iran executed this patrol flawlessly indicates that such preparation has occurred quietly over an extended period. Subscribe if you are watching this, and understanding that major shifts in global military alignment often occur beneath the surface of public awareness and only become visible when they reach operational activation. Now let me explain what each nation brings to this alliance. Announcement number 1. Russia brings advanced military technology, including hypersonic weapons, electronic warfare capabilities, and submarine expertise that neither China nor Iran possesses at the same level. And this matters because it fills critical capability gaps that would otherwise limit the alliance's effectiveness against American forces. Russian hypersonic missiles, specifically the 3M-22 Zircon, with which the Admiral Gorshkov is equipped, travel at speeds exceeding Mach 8 and can strike targets at ranges of 1,000 kilometers. These weapons are effectively uninterceptable using current American air defense systems, including Aegis-equipped ships and Patriot batteries. When Russian ships operate in coordination with Chinese and Iranian forces, they provide a strike capability that can threaten American aircraft carriers and bases at ranges and speeds that create operational dilemmas for American commanders. Russian electronic warfare systems are among the most sophisticated in the world, developed through decades of investment and refined through operations in Syria and Ukraine. These systems can jam American communications, disrupt GPS navigation, and degrade the effectiveness of American precision-guided weapons. When integrated into joint operations with China and Iran, Russian electronic warfare creates an environment where American technological advantages are reduced, forcing American forces to operate with degraded capabilities. Russian submarine expertise is critical for operations in confined waters like the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. Russia has been operating submarines in challenging environments, including the Arctic and the Mediterranean, for decades and has developed tactics and technologies for shallow water operations that American forces find difficult to counter. Russian advisors working with Iranian submarine forces have apparently transferred knowledge about optimal positioning, acoustic signature management, and coordinated attacks that significantly enhance Iranian capabilities. According to assessments from the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence, leaked portions of which were reported by USNI News, Russian involvement with Iranian naval forces has increased Iranian effectiveness by an estimated 40 to 60% across multiple mission areas including anti-submarine warfare, mine warfare, and anti-surface operations. This is not just equipment transfer. This is doctrinal education and operational mentorship that creates lasting capability improvements. Received. That is announcement number 1. Announcement number 2. China brings economic power, logistics capacity, and advanced sensors that enable sustained operations and provide situational awareness that exceeds what Russia or Iran could generate independently. And this contribution is equally important because modern warfare depends as much on information dominance and logistics sustainability as on weapons technology. China's economy is the second largest in the world and has industrial capacity that vastly exceeds Russia's or Iran's. This means that China can provide the financial resources and material support necessary to sustain prolonged military operations, to replace losses, and to absorb economic costs that might force other nations to de-escalate. In any extended confrontation with the United States, China's economic depth gives the alliance staying power that would be absent if Russia and Iran were operating alone. Chinese logistics capabilities include a global network of commercial shipping, port facilities, and supply chains that can be leveraged for military purposes. China has been developing dual-use infrastructure throughout the Middle East and Indian Ocean region, including ports in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Djibouti, and potentially Iran itself. These facilities can support Chinese naval operations far from Chinese home waters, providing refueling, resupply, and maintenance capabilities that extend operational reach dramatically. Chinese sensors and intelligence collection systems are highly advanced, rivaling American capabilities in some areas. Chinese satellites provide continuous surveillance of the Middle East region. Chinese cyber capabilities allow collection of communications and signals intelligence. Chinese investment in artificial intelligence enables rapid processing and analysis of massive data flows to identify patterns and predict adversary actions. When these capabilities are integrated with Russian and Iranian inputs, the alliance achieves information superiority that complicates American operational planning. The Type 055 destroyer that participated in the joint patrol is equipped with a dual-band radar system that can track hundreds of targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding 400 kilometers. When this radar data is shared with Russian and Iranian forces, all three nations have access to a common operational picture that allows coordinated responses to American movements and enhances survivability against American strikes. Think carefully about what this integration means. In previous conflicts, American forces enjoyed information superiority that allowed them to see adversary forces before being seen and to strike before being struck. Against an integrated Russian-Chinese-Iranian network sharing sensor data and coordinating responses, American information advantages are degraded significantly. This levels the playing field in ways that favor the defender, operating close to home bases, over the attacker operating at the end of extended supply lines. Received. That is announcement number 2. Announcement number 3, Iran brings geographic position, local knowledge, and willingness to accept risks that constrain Russian and Chinese actions. And this final element is what makes the alliance operationally potent rather than merely symbolic. Iran controls the northern and eastern shores of the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf. This provides the alliance with territory from which to operate coastal defenses, to base sensors and weapons, and to control approaches to the strait in ways that no other nation can replicate. Russian and Chinese forces can visit the Gulf and conduct operations, but they cannot maintain permanent presence without Iranian cooperation and support. Iran is the anchor that holds the alliance's position in the region. Iranian forces have decades of experience operating in the specific environmental conditions of the Gulf, including shallow waters, high temperatures, complex acoustics, and chaotic civilian shipping traffic. This local knowledge informs tactical decisions about where to position assets, when to maneuver, and how to exploit terrain features in ways that foreign forces cannot match. When Iranian knowledge is combined with Russian technology and Chinese logistics, the alliance operates with advantages that exceed what any member could achieve alone. Iranian political leadership has demonstrated willingness to accept risks and costs that more cautious nations avoid. Iran has sustained comprehensive sanctions for decades without capitulating. Iranian forces have engaged in proxy conflicts across the region, despite risks of escalation. Iranian commanders are prepared to employ asymmetric tactics, including mining operations, swarming attacks, and defensive operations in confined waters that create disproportionate costs for adversaries. This risk tolerance complements Russian and Chinese capabilities by providing options that might be politically unacceptable for Moscow or Beijing to execute directly, but that can be employed by Tehran with Russian and Chinese support. According to analysis by the Rand Corporation, examining previous cases of military alliances, the most effective coalitions combine complementary capabilities where each member contributes elements the others lack. The Russia-China-Iran alignment fits this model precisely. Russia provides technology, China provides resources and logistics, and Iran provides geography and operational commitment. When integrated, these contributions create a capability that American forces have not previously faced in the Middle East. The joint patrol that occurred on May 8th was designed to signal this integration publicly. The message to Washington and to American allies in the region is clear. Iran is not alone. American military action against Iran will face not just Iranian resistance, but coordinated opposition from Russia and China, and the costs of confrontation have increased beyond levels that previous American planning assumed. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's discuss why the United States and its allies have limited options to reverse or counter this development, because understanding the constraints facing American strategy is essential to assessing where this situation leads. The conventional American response to adversary alliances has been to fracture them through diplomacy, sanctions, or military pressure that drives wedges between partners. This worked against the Soviet-Chinese alignment in the 1970s, when the United States exploited tensions between Moscow and Beijing. It worked against the Axis powers in World War II through sustained military pressure and alliance diplomacy. But the Russia-China-Iran alignment is more resilient because the strategic interests driving it are fundamental rather than opportunistic. Russia seeks to challenge American global primacy and to establish a multipolar order where Russian influence is respected in regions Russia considers strategically important, including the Middle East. This interest is not contingent on specific leaders or policies. It is structural and will persist regardless of who governs in Moscow. China seeks to secure energy supplies necessary for its economic development and to establish influence in regions beyond its immediate periphery. China imports approximately 10 million barrels of oil per day, much of it from the Persian Gulf. Ensuring access to these supplies and preventing American disruption is a core Chinese interest that will remain regardless of shifts in Chinese domestic politics or economic conditions. Iran seeks to deter American military action and to establish itself as the dominant regional power in the Gulf and broader Middle East. Iranian leadership across both reformist and conservative factions agrees on this objective, even if they disagree on tactics. Alignment with Russia and China provides Iran security guarantees and economic support that no other partnership could offer. These interests are complementary and mutually reinforcing. Russia gains influence and challenges American primacy. China secures energy and extends reach. Iran obtains protection and support. Each nation's objectives are advanced by cooperation, and attempting to fracture the alliance requires offering one-member benefits that exceed what they gain through alignment. The United States cannot offer Russia recognition as a great power equal to the United States. The United States cannot offer China guaranteed access to Middle East energy independent of American approval. The United States cannot offer Iran security guarantees against regime change. Therefore, the alliance persists. Military pressure is equally ineffective at fracturing the alignment because pressure on one member triggers support from the others. Strikes on Iranian forces bring Russian electronic warfare and Chinese intelligence sharing that complicate American operations. Sanctions on China bring Iranian oil sales at discounted prices that partially offset Chinese losses. Isolation of Russia brings Chinese technology cooperation and Iranian diplomatic support. The alliance is resilient precisely because it is based on shared opposition to American primacy rather than on opportunistic convergence. This has historical parallels that illuminate current dynamics. In the late 1930s, Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan formed the Axis alliance based on shared opposition to the existing international order dominated by Britain, France, and the United States. The alliance was ideologically diverse, economically uneven, and geographically dispersed, leading many observers to predict it would fracture under pressure. But it held together until defeated militarily because the shared interest in overturning the status quo outweighed disagreements on other issues. The Russia-China-Iran alignment is not morally or politically equivalent to the Axis, but the structural logic is similar. Shared opposition to American primacy creates cohesion that overcomes differences. The alliance will persist until either American primacy is accepted by all parties, which seems unlikely, or until one member concludes that costs of confrontation exceed benefits of alignment, which requires American strategy to impose selective costs rather than broad pressure. So where does this leave American strategy? Let me outline three possible approaches. Approach 1. Accept multipolarity and adapt strategy accordingly. The United States acknowledges that it cannot maintain uncontested primacy in all regions simultaneously and focuses resources on areas of highest strategic priority, likely the Western Pacific and Europe, while reducing commitments in the Middle East, where adversary coalitions are strongest. This approach accepts that the Russia-China-Iran alliance controls the Persian Gulf in practice and adjusts American strategy to protect core interests through diplomacy, economic leverage, and selective military presence rather than through regional dominance. The likelihood of this approach being adopted is approximately 40%. It aligns with strategic logic and resource constraints, but faces political resistance from those committed to global primacy. Approach 2. Compete for influence by strengthening regional alliances with Gulf Arab states, Israel, and potentially India to create a coalition that can balance Russia-China-Iran alignment. The United States provides advanced weapons, intelligence sharing, and security commitments that make American partnership more valuable than alternatives. This approach accepts multipolarity, but competes for favorable balance of power through alliance building rather than unilateral dominance. The likelihood of this approach is approximately 35%. It is resource-intensive and depends on allied cooperation that may not be reliable given perceptions of declining American commitment. Approach 3. Attempt to fracture the Russia-China-Iran alignment through aggressive policies targeting the weakest member. The United States conducts maximum pressure campaign against Iran, including military strikes, comprehensive sanctions, and support for internal opposition, calculating that neither Russia nor China will risk direct confrontation with the United States to protect Iran. If Iran is isolated or its government is changed, the alliance dissolves and American primacy is restored. The likelihood of this approach is approximately 25%. It is high risk, and historically such strategies often fail by strengthening alliance cohesion rather than fracturing it. I think the United States will drift toward approach 2 over the next years, competing for influence rather than attempting to restore dominance or accepting retreat. But the underlying trend is toward multipolarity, where American power is one pole among several rather than the sole organizing principle of international order. Here are the questions I want you to consider. First, can the United States maintain global leadership in an era when major powers coordinate to challenge American primacy? Second, is the Russia-China-Iran alliance sustainable over decades, or will internal contradictions eventually fracture it? Third, What does this alignment mean for smaller nations trying to navigate between American-led and China-Russia-Iran aligned blocs? Tell me in the comments whether you think this alliance is temporary or represents a lasting shift in global order. Tell me how you think the United States should respond. We will continue tracking how this develops. That is what Daily Brief does every day. Subscribe now. Share this with anyone interested in understanding how the global order is being restructured in real time. Turn on notifications, and we will see you in the next analysis.